Brilliant. Thank you so much, Belinda. Lovely to see so many of you this morning, actually, still this morning, lunchtime, isn't it? So, yeah, so just a quick introduction, I suppose, really. I know some of you already, which is really lovely to see you. I've been running mental health first aid training as a provider for Mental Health First Aid England since 2018. And actually, initially, it was to support a sibling who experienced psychosis, some signs of which during teenage years, which we actually dismissed for adolescence, which then developed into psychosis. So my initial motivation was to support them, and realizing then that the impact this had on my own well-being and also a knock-on effect for hers. So I've continued with this work. Why would I not, actually? Because it's been really impactful for quite a few people. I've trained over 1,200 people, leaders and individuals in the workplace to help raise mental health awareness and literacy, and to reduce stigma and improve on active listening skills towards recovery. On a personal note, I've got a daughter who is still at school. She's doing A-levels. I also run my own business. But previous to this, I used to lead young people in the outdoor industry in remote parts of Africa. Having been part of the first all-women expedition to the North Pole in '97, I wanted to be able to give something back and to utilise my skills. So, and the love of the outdoors, of course, as well. So, and my continued professional development is in positive psychology. So that's where my motivation is, and that's why I want to support leaders going forward in this sector. So over to you, Belinda.
Thanks, Paula. I haven't counted how many people I've trained, so maybe that's something I need to go and do. But very, very similar to Paula, also a working parent. Both my girls are in their early 20s now, and went through a very personal journey with one of my daughters from about the age of 16 to about the age of 21. That was probably the toughest years that we had to work through as a family. And, you know, being the breadwinner as well and a working parent, I know what it's like to juggle all those balls and to try and continue to be productive and your best self in the workplace as well. Paula and I have been doing lots of mental health training. I'm also a MHFA England instructor member. And more, I'd say over the last few sessions that we've had, probably over the last 6 months or so, the reason for people coming on to the program is to help their children. So we thought, why don't we do something really focused, particular on this to help working parents? Because, yeah, it could be quite a tough place to be. So when I don't spend time with my amazing family, I do love the work that I do. And it's, in a nutshell, helping business leaders to help their employees find their confidence and maintain their mental resilience and shine their unique talent. So I'm a business psychologist and experienced coach, and very keen to bring those expertise more to the table to help working parents. So that's a little bit about me.
Great. So thank you, Belinda. Great. And I didn't realise, you know, we've known each other for quite a long time, so it's lovely to come together for this session as well. So thanks. So just to give you a bit of insight into what we want to cover today, is basically to look at some stats actually and the impact mental health has on young people. Then to share some useful tips to help you and your kids. This particular sort of focus has been around sort of age 8 to 18. That's where the sort of general focus is. And also it's about balancing where we are trying to balance work and life. I think that's a big challenge for a lot of us. Also, we'll provide an insight into our courses going forward and how to support you as working parents. And then Belinda has a takeaway, a mini coaching session that is very thought-provoking. So feel free to get involved. I think it's really, really useful. But feel free to get involved as much as you want. And again, feel free to ask any questions at all throughout this process, and we'll come back to it at the end so we can have a discussion. So please enjoy the webinar and look forward to speaking to you throughout this process. So over to you again, Belinda, I think.
Thank you. So I do have some questions or some statistics that we've designed in the form of a quiz. So have a little think of the answers before I reveal them. And if you want to, you can stick your answers in the chat, or you can just think about the answers to yourself. So Paula, do you want to, this is a build and you're driving, you press the, thank you. So the first one there is mental health problems affect how many children and young people? So if you were to think one in so many, what would your guess be? Reveal the answer, Paula. So yeah, so you've got one. Well, the statistics that we got was 1 in 10, but I'm very sure that it is probably more than that, to be honest, because this is obviously just statistics that's gone through to the Office of Statistics, and it's not all recorded. And very often people don't even know, like with Paula's example of her siblings, don't really know it's a mental health issue sometimes. Next one, number 2.
Where's my working? There we go.
So what percentage of employees worry about their children's mental health whilst at work? What do you reckon? Do the answer. So it's a third, which is quite a lot. Number 3. So presenteeism is when we are at work, but we're not really able to do our best, and we can't really concentrate on what we're doing. So we're not really being productive. We're there, but we're not really doing very well. So presenteeism is currently costing UK employers how many billions of pounds, do you reckon?
If I get one right, can I have a prize, please?
We can send you a prize if you like, Rick.
I'm the only one putting answers in the chat.
You're doing very well.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so involved. Yeah, so it's between 26 and 29 billion pounds a year, actually, because you can imagine, you know, all the costs are there. People go off sick. People are not being able to do their work properly, concentrate, get involved. So it's very costly for the economy. What percentage of mental health calls handled by Bupa have family-related elements, do you reckon?
Go on then, Rick. Any thoughts? Oh, 80. Yeah.
I've hogged the chat for too long. I can't do this one. Something else.
Okay. So do you want to reveal the answer, Paula? 70%. So that is on the rise, according to lots of different research. The next one is, you just have to think true or false for these. So true or false, depression is the leading cause of years lost due to disability worldwide. Reveal the answer. So it's true. It's currently ranked 3rd in global burden of disease and is projected to rank 1st in 2030, which isn't far off. Next question, true or false? 25% of adults with mental health issues were diagnosed in childhood. I reckon. It's false. It's actually more than 50% of adults with mental health issues were diagnosed in childhood, and less than half of those were treated appropriately at the time. And the last one, true or false, 85% of young people with mental ill health say the support of their family and friends is helpful with dealing with their health. And reveal the answer, Paula. That is true. So they need their family and friends, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Belinda. So we would love to share a few sort of secret ingredients, I suppose, really as a takeaway from this session. It sort of forms part of our overall, part of the course that we're suggesting and running going forward. So the first one is, so this is an acronym, okay, which you can take away. So the first one is P, which is person-centric or person-centered. So when we're supporting young people, it can be challenging because we may not always have the answers all the time, or the space, or the knowledge. So we've suggested this particular acronym to take away. So let's explore each one. So the person-centered is focusing on the young person or the individual rather than behavior. So in the heat of the moment, it's easy to focus on what you see and to be reactive, especially if you've got a work deadline, and at the same time as your kids may be experiencing challenges of their own. So at school, which could have an impact on their behaviour, like bullying or social media challenges or exam pressure or peer pressure, or even hormonal challenges that you may be unaware of, or they may also be unaware of, actually, and how to articulate these feelings. So there's a couple of things to consider, which I think as parents is really useful. So is about making special time, knowing even if you have 15 minutes of uninterrupted time every day, it can really strengthen the relationship. So if you focus on them as an individual, and it's easy to be a critical parent, of course it is, but if you show and express that you care about them as a person, of course they may roll their eyes and be dismissive to your interactions. So if you ask rather than tell, but also make them feel capable, but also recognise that limiting choices is important to provide them a safe space, and which means allows you to still be a parent. There's an expression that I've heard recently that's, are you cushioning or pushing, as in cushioning or pushing when we do that. So it can take time, especially if this is a new approach. The second one is awareness of mental health. So I know a lot of you are already aware of what mental health is, but just to reinforce it. So it's, how are you feeling right now? What are your thoughts and feelings? Obviously a rhetorical question, but mental health is part of our overall health. It can influence how we think, how we feel about ourselves and others, and how we interpret events. It can affect our ability to learn, to communicate, and to form, sustain, and end relationships. And it also influences our ability to cope with change or transition and life events. And Eckhart Tolle talked about, who's a philosopher, he talked about awareness creates agency for change. I really like that thought. So having awareness as parents, we can make positive changes in our relationships with our young people and our kids. So that's the second one. The third one is understanding or unconditional listening. And this is where you give the person unconditional positive regard. So show you care about them, and it's okay to get things wrong. That's how we learn. Listen to understand what's going on for them rather than trying to be understood. I remember that statement years ago. I thought, wow, that's huge. But it's about creating a safe space to listen and make sure that they know they've been heard. So even if there isn't an immediate solution to the problem, if you show genuine interest, empathy, and acceptance that that's their reality, it can make a massive difference. The next one is S, which is self-care. So this is now a recognised term, and it means activities that create positive mental health and resilience for you, which underpins everything we cover in the course. So self-care, when practiced regularly, can provide more capacity to support others. And as an example of self-care, we're talking about the 4 pillars of health, could be exercise, healthy nutrition, sleep and rest. So self-care is essential. And finally, the last one, which is E, which is around emotional literacy. So if you name your emotions, this can take the power out of them, recognizing that you are not your emotions, but by processing the emotion rather than ignoring it. So this can encourage a safe space for your young person or your children. So and to potentially open up and be brave to talk to you. So showing that you care, not to challenge, but be curious, make them feel heard, and they recognize what they are going on, what's going on for them, it matters, and you've got a listening ear and unconditional support. So and also emotional literacy, I think is a big one, and it's something that I want to explore a lot more in the course as well. So just small steps around recognizing our emotions can really help. So it's about taking a pause. Ultimately, that's one takeaway on its own. So it's just taking a step back in the moment, which can really help when we're supporting our young people. So that's just a bit of an insight into some of the things that we cover during the course, but also a mini sort of takeaway. So I've sort of rambled on quite a lot there, but
It's okay.
over to you, Belinda.
So I just want to, before you move on the slide, just a couple of things just to add from my personal experiences, and I'm sure all the parents on the call can, feel the same way. So very often I tend to focus on the behaviour, because that's what you do as a parent. I think we're all hardwired to kind of help our children fit into society. So that is what gets in the way. So looking beyond the behavior, and like Paula said, being focused on the person as a whole, that is quite an achievement to be doing as a parent. But if you're consciously aware of that and taking pause away, that might be helpful. And then the second one, just to add there, around the symptoms. Do you know what the symptoms might be? Because since I've done all my mental health training, and I know as much as I do now, people have described things to me, and I think, oh, okay, that sounds a little bit like a symptom. So you start recognizing things rather than thinking someone's lazy or they're not interested or any of those things. So understanding mental health and being person-centric is probably my number one and number two on that pause list, but they're all obviously very important, and it works. So following that food for thought, we just want to talk a little bit about the training course that we've designed together to specifically focus on helping working parents. And this is just a really quick overview of a one-day training course. So Paula, would you like to share a little bit about the first session or the first half of the course?
Yeah, thanks, Belinda. Yeah, because it is quite interactive. So obviously these are sort of main headers that we'll explore, because I think sometimes just understanding some of the common mental health challenges young people experience. We'll look at the insights into language and how that can impact us and our mental health, and how poor mental health can develop, and how to look out for the signs and symptoms before it gets to crisis, a little bit like my experience. And obviously the difference between this and the common challenges of adolescence. So we will look at the impact of emotions, as I mentioned earlier. So there's a lot around that which I'm really interested in exploring. So, but also one of the biggest improvements in our mental health from my own experience is when we feel heard and validated and supported. So the art of listening is key. So because we're not taught this in school. So we will explore this in greater detail, the approach, the tone, how to ask non-judgmental questions, and we'll look at in-the-moment approaches and more longer-term strategies for managing mental health. And finally, how it starts with you as parents, putting in self-care strategies for you and boundaries to give you more capacity to manage a work-life balance. So that's an overview of the first part of the course, which is a 3-hour session, and then Belinda's mental resilience coaching comes after. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to invite you in a minute to do a little bit of coaching with me. But in essence, the second part of the day is to really individually give you an opportunity to individually focus on what your reality looks like and what are the few things that will work for you, because what will work for me might not work for you, etc. So working out what is it that needs to change, what is it that you need to take away and do differently from that moment onwards that will help you with your resilience, but also help your children. We're all unique. We're all unique and different. So that will be an opportunity, and it's all very safe and confidential. Obviously, Paula and I are very experienced in doing this, so nobody will feel vulnerable or unsafe throughout the whole process. You'll go away with some real tangible actions for yourself, and things to go and think about.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.